We get a lot of mixed messages from our current heavyweight champions. 1 minute they're talking about unifications. The next minute they're talking about fighting top contenders. The next minute they're talking about fighting former cruiserweight champions. So it's difficult to know which direction they're actually trying to go. In this particular instance, Joseph Parker says that once he gets through with Hughie Fury, if he gets through with Hughie Fury, he would be very open to a fight against Tony Bellew. That would be a voluntary defense. That would be a pretty big money fight in the UK. It would be certainly a bigger money fight than this Hughie Fury fight is. Now, what people want Joseph Parker to say, most people, I think it's fair to assume, they want Joseph Parker to say that after I get through with Hughie Fury, I want Joshua. After I get through with Hughie Fury, I want Wilder. That's what I guess most people would want him to say. And maybe he has said that in other interviews. But in this particular interview, he's saying he's looking at Tony Bellew. I'm going to quote Joseph Parker directly here. He says, "I feel fantastic. I'm training hard and I'm in good shape. I'm looking forward to the challenge of fighting someone that is 6'6" and uses the ring well. I look forward to fighting in front of his home crowd and putting on a great performance. My message to him is train as hard as he can, as I am coming as a champion and I'm going to go home with my belts. Come with your best because I am coming with my best." He then goes on to talk about this Bellew situation. He says, "There is a chance that we may fight sometime soon. I need to get past Hughie and then we can set something up. I look forward to fighting Fury and then hopefully I will be fighting him. We'll see." And when he said him there, he's referring to Tony Bellew. I'll leave a link in the description below to this particular article. Now, a lot of boxing fans today, including people who have been boxing fans for several decades, they do tend to look back at the past with rose-tinted glasses. And they seem to believe that back in the days, there was no such thing as tune-up fights. There was no such thing as stay-busy fights against weaker opposition. There was no such thing as any of that. It was back-to-back tough fights for every top fighter. That's what a lot of people seem to believe. Some people weren't around, so they don't know any better because they weren't around back then. And some people have just got very selective memories. But I've been through this before. Back in the days, people like Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., James Toney, and a whole host of other top professionals in the 80s and 90s, they fought many stay-busy fights and non-title fights in between their world title fights. They would tour the country fighting obscure journeymen in between their world title fights. Now, the argument is obviously that, okay, well, at least they're not title fights. But you look at Dylan White recently. He fought on the Terence Crawford, Julius Ndongo undercard, and he was slated by a lot of people for fighting Malcolm Tan in a tune-up fight, in a stay-busy fight. Why? It's not like he's fighting Malcolm Tan instead of fighting somebody else. No. He didn't have much of a budget to work with because it's not his promoter's show. It was Bob Arum's show. And people are just incensed that he had a tune-up fight. Tune-up fights have been happening since the dawn of time, people. And Dylan White's not even a champion. Why can't he take a tune-up fight? I don't get it. I don't understand it. Fighters have always been taking tune-up fights throughout the history of boxing. You know? Anyway, as far as Joseph Parker versus Tony Bellew, would that be a tune-up fight? Would that be a stay-busy fight? Not exactly. Tony Bellew is a world-class fighter, albeit at cruiserweight rather than heavyweight. Him fighting Bellew would be a voluntary defense, somewhat of a novelty, I guess you could say, no disrespect to Bellew, but it would be somewhat of a novelty fight because Bellew hasn't really proven himself at heavyweight. I know he beat Hay, but you know, let's not go into the circumstances surrounding the Hay win. I'm not trying to take anything away from Bellew, I'm just being realistic. So, as a heavyweight, Bellew was really unproven. He's just got a nice win on paper over Hay, and he has a profile in the UK. a decent public profile. So, you know, Parker against Bellew, I don't despise the fight. And if the other champions are tied up doing other things and Parker can't get a unification, then I guess I can't really hate on it. Even though there are more worthy contenders, but it's not like Tony Bellew's a mandatory or anything. As long as he's ranked within the top 10 or top 15 of the WBO, if Parker manages to get past Hughie Fury, then I guess it's fair enough to fight a Tony Bellew. It is prize fighting at the end of the day, and Tony Bellew, I guess in the mind of Parker and his team, will probably be low risk, high reward. You know, I'm not saying that that's the reality of the situation or not. I'm saying in their minds, they probably view Tony Bellew as low risk and high reward. So, anyway, let me know what you think about everything I talked about in this video. It's happening, I'm out.